Welcome back, Kilbert Panthers. In our last lesson, lesson 15, we talked about the goal of manifest destiny and how the United States was destined to expand its borders from the Atlantic Ocean in the east to the Pacific Ocean in the west. And we took a look at all the different land purchases or land acquisitions that the United States made to achieve manifest destiny. What we want to do in lesson 16 is we want to take a look at the different groups of people who are going to move out west and why. Start that off and go with the Lewis and Clark expedition. Here are our learning targets today. We're going to discuss the goals of the Lewis and Clark expedition. What were they hoping to accomplish by going out that way? And then what did they find? So let's take a little look. So if you take a look at the map, Thomas Jefferson was able to purchase the Louisiana Territory, a huge chunk of land. And now that we have it, what did we buy? What is out there? If we send people out there, are they going to be safe? Native Americans going to attack? What's going to happen? So there was a whole bunch of questions about this land purchase. And to find out what it is that we acquired, President Jefferson is going to send Lewis and Clark to lead an expedition. So who are Lewis and Clark? Well, let's take a look at Meriwether Lewis. He was Jefferson's personal secretary. And to prepare for this expedition, he's going to be training himself in different areas, mineralogy. Is there gold up there in them there hills? What is there anything out there of value? Botany. He's going to take a look at a lot of the plants out there. I believe it's going to be about 122 different plant species that previously we did not know about that were located out there. Astronomy. Going to take a look at all the weather and the climate, the stars, all that, and zoology. I believe it's about 178 different species of animal life that is going to be discovered on the Lewis and Clark expedition. And the entire expedition, Meriwether Lewis is going to draw very detailed pictures of plants and animals with notes and send them back to Thomas Jefferson in the White House. The other member of the other leader of the expedition is William Clark. William Clark and Meriwether Lewis were in the military together. William Clark was Meriwether Lewis's superior in the military, and Meriwether Lewis wanted him to pretty much lead the expedition. Now, he had experience in leading military expeditions. He also had experience in drawing maps. And so Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, they're pretty much co-leaders, and each have a different skill set. I always like to put a face to a name. So the Lewis and Clark expedition, the official name was the Corps of Discovery. All right? And what they did is they recruited people. 45 people are going to go on the expedition. And what they wanted was they wanted unmarried, healthy men. All right? No family ties, no wife at home, no children to be responsible for. Wanted people who could go out, started out in 1804, came back in 1807. So this took a little while. Good hunters, new survival skills, they were going to need it, all right? Other people that were on the expedition, Toussaint Charbonneau. He was a French fur trader, and they were going to bring him along to interpret, and he brought along his wife, a Native American Shoshone woman in her teens, Sacagawea, and she was very valuable on this trip. There were times where she helped save supplies that went into the water. She acquired horses for them on the journey. She interpreted as well. So Sacagawea, very valuable, and she brought her infant child with her. So on the expedition, they're going to encounter around 50 Native American tribes, and part of their goal was to find out if the Native American tribes were going to be friendly, if they're going to be helpful, were they not going to be friendly. So they had to find that out. They had a number of gifts that they brought with them to give to the Native American tribes. Only one death. A gentleman by the name of Charles Floyd died of appendicitis on the journey. And the journey began in May of 1804, and they returned to St. Louis in September of 1807. This is a picture of Sacagawea and her infant child. She is the second female to be put on U.S. currency. The first was Susan B. Anthony. So what were the goals of the expedition? All right. So there were three different goals. First one, make friendly contact with Native American tribes. All right. Let them know that the Great Father in Washington thought highly of them, and that the land, they told the land belonged to the Great Father, and they wanted to get along. And they brought gifts to help pave the way. Beads, face paint, knives, tobacco, ivory combs, ribbons, sewing needles, mirrors, bright colored cloth. Now to you and me, we look at these things and we're like, this is what they were traded with the Native Americans. They wanted to locate a Northwest Passage, and we've talked about a Northwest Passage before. It's what all the explorers were looking for when they came this way and ran into North America. Was there an all-water route through North America that they could use to get to Asia quicker? And that's one of the things that Lewis and Clark were going to look for. It doesn't exist. And then what was in the Louisiana Territory? What is there stuff that's going to make the U.S. richer? What kind of plants, animals? There's one animal that Thomas Jefferson thought was living out there that we'll talk about in a minute. You're going to think, wow, he thought that. So as I mentioned earlier, I got it backwards. We had 122 animal species and 178 plant species that were discovered by Lewis and Clark. And take a look at these drawings, how detailed they are. And then a lot of them would have detailed notes on them as well. In some instances, they would capture one of these animals, they would kill it, and they would send it back by courier to the White House. And so during the Lewis and Clark expedition, packages would be arriving at the White House of these plants or animals that were newly discovered. Other animals, the grizzly bear, the pronghorn antelope, the wolf, the prairie dog, different birds and fish and plants, all discovered. So little known facts about the expedition. Thomas Jefferson believed that Lewis and Clark might run into woolly mammoths. Now, if you don't know what a woolly mammoth is, it is a really furry elephant with long tusks that lived in the Ice Age. And so little was known about this area of land that Thomas Jefferson really believed that Lewis and Clark might come into contact with woolly mammoths. The Spanish sent soldiers to arrest the expedition. Spanish were afraid that the expedition would somehow find gold or something like that, and they sent expeditions out to arrest Lewis and Clark and the members of the Corps of Discovery, but they couldn't find them, so they were never arrested. Clark brought his slave York on the journey, and numerous times Native Americans would go up to him and rub his face to make sure that he wasn't wearing paint. Right? They were shocked to see a black person. Sacagawea reunited with their long-lost brother during the journey. Sacagawea's brother was a chief of the Shoshone tribe. Sacagawea was a Shoshone Indian who had been captured by the Mandan Indians and taken prisoner. And during the journey, she came across the area of land where they used to live and discovered that her brother was the chief of the tribe, which also helped. They gave the Lewis and Clark expedition horses, so very valuable stuff. And then Clark adopted Sacagawea's children after all was said and done. I like trivia. So that was the Lewis and Clark expedition. Let me go back one second. So they're going to go all the way to the Pacific Ocean. They're going to make it to Oregon. They're going to spend the winter there, and then they're going to come back. I believe it's the Nez Perce Indians who are going to help them out, or no, it's the Clatsop Indians. And then they're going to come back, and then Lewis and Clark are going to split up on the way back. But May 1804 is the starting point. September 1807, they returned to St. Louis, and we know a lot more about the area than was previously known. But I feel sorry for this next guy, Zebulon Pike. Lewis and Clark got all the glory. Everyone talks about Lewis and Clark. No one talks about Zebulon Pike. He's out there. He's going around. In 1805 and 1806, he explored the northern part of the Mississippi River. And then in 1806, 1807, he's asked to find the source of the Arkansas and the Red Rivers. But if you take a look, he got a little lost. He got a little lost, and he was arrested by the Spanish authorities. They release him, but while he's doing all this, Lewis and Clark are doing their thing, and poor Zebulon. However, there is a tall mountain in Colorado called Pikes Peak, very famous mountain that is named after Zebulon. So what we did today is we talked about explorers that were set out to explore the Louisiana Territory, and we talked about Lewis and Clark and their goals and what they discovered and things like that. I have a game that we're going to be playing about the Lewis and Clark expedition. I don't think there's a Zebulon Pike edition. Once again, Lewis and Clark get all the glory. I got some work coming your way. Talk to you.